all roads these days on infrastructure really lead back through West Virginia, with Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito taking the lead in negotiating with President Biden over the hoped-for bipartisan approach. And welcome now the lead negotiator herself, Senator Capitos. So, Senator, thank you so much for being with us. Let's start with the Republican side. We've been waiting with bated breath for a counterproposal out of the Republican caucus. We haven't gotten it yet. Why not? Are you having trouble putting it together, or are you just so close to having something constructive that it's worth waiting?
Well, actually, we did have a meeting in my office with White House officials yesterday where we, the 6 of us senators, came forward with a repurposing of our original proposal. So whether you want to call that a counter proposal or not, where we could, again, look at definitionally where we believe infrastructure is and then where those numbers would line out over a certain period of time. And the White House said that they would get back to us this week. So we're waiting for that, hopefully Thursday or Friday, so we can keep this process moving. I think we're all dedicated to finding an end result here. We're still, we still have differences, and so we need to work through those.
I wonder how, if at all, the two sides are moving toward one another. Your original proposal, as I recall, was just under $600 billion total, put it all together. And then we heard Mitch McConnell, the minority leader in the Senate, say, well, maybe we go to 8. We've now heard Lindsey Graham, maybe $900 billion. Where are you right now? Are you still under $600 billion? Where can you get to?
Well, I'm not sure where the best way to look at it is what do we need, and then we try to figure out what that is going to cost and how we pay for it. And that's the approach that we've taken. Let's look at the essential infrastructure items: roads and bridges, waterways, airports, rail, and broadband. Let's put together a robust package, and let's move the numbers where we need to do that. So we're in the process of doing that. Obviously, the president is very committed to electric vehicle infrastructure. So that's an area that we need to look at, I think, in order to satisfy him. So we're moving, and obviously we would be moving up because that would be moving towards the president's numbers. But I don't want to negotiate, in public simply because I think we need to do it as we're in the room together.
Yeah, you're certainly welcome to negotiate with me if you want, but I'm not surprised that you don't want to particularly do that. But yeah. Electric vehicles, that's very important because that's something, as I recall, was not in your original proposal. That is terribly important to the president, as you said. Are you indicating there might be some flexibility there on the Republican side?
Well, what we're doing here is we're mirroring what's going on in committee. I'm the ranking member of EPW. We're doing a surface transportation bill. There is electric vehicle infrastructure in that bill, as there was last year, the bill that I voted for last year that never became law. So our anticipation is that this would be a part of this, yes. And I think it's an important part. It's just now measuring how important you want it to be and what are we looking for the future. I don't want to incentivize, I don't want to have go into a space where private investment can really fill this space, which is, I think, what happens with EV infrastructure. So let's figure out a way that government can jumpstart it and then let that private investment go, because there's going to be money made here on that.
So West Virginia clearly is an important energy state. How does that work for the state of West Virginia at this point? Is your economy prepared to deal with an electric vehicle future?
Well, I think I probably represent one of the states where electric vehicles will probably pose a bit of a challenge. We have a very mountainous terrain. We have a lot of windy roads. So getting the infrastructure into our particular state is going to be a particular challenge. I think that we will move to electric vehicles. I just heard a news report this morning about a small town that's going to have a EV cruiser, and they're all excited about it. But we already have some of the infrastructure in place at certain stops, mostly along the interstate. So we're going to fill in those gaps for sure.
Senator, let's talk about how you might finance whatever the number is. It's 600, 800, yes. 900, whatever the number is, how you finance it. What is the potential role for public-private partnerships? And particularly, what about an infrastructure bank? Is the White House open to that as a way of financing some of this?
We spent a lot of time talking about how we can get private investment into this infrastructure space. And I think that's critical, whether it's public-private partnerships, but we are looking at some kind of financing authority, revolving fund, infrastructure bank, to be able to give us the longevity and to fill the gap that we have from the gasoline tax, because that's a declining resource. That's still about a $300 billion over 5 years resource for us, but as we know, that's going to go down. We got to get something to fill the gap. We're going to look at EV electric vehicle users. They're not paying into the road fund. We need to figure out a way have them help us with the maintenance of the roads that they use. We're looking at vehicle miles traveled. I think that's another possibility, maybe for some truck fleets or larger fleets of that nature, where they already have the chips installed. They can do that quite easily. So I think there's a lot we can do on that space on users, but I do think that this private investment that we can put into our infrastructure development is critical, and we're working on that with the White House. Yes, I think we're both like-minded there.
Well, that's really my point, exactly. And I understand no deal's done until the entire deal's done, so you can't have part of it done. But right now, as you look at it, it sounds like there might be, as you say, some common ground there. We might be able to expect something like an infrastructure bank or private-public partnerships, as well as the tax we would substitute for gasoline tax on vehicle miles traveled. That's something you think there might be common ground on.
Well, we definitely want to pay for it, and I think there's all kinds of different ways that we're looking at. Certainly repurposing some of the COVID dollars. I've been looking at those 21 states that are no longer paying the enhanced unemployment. Why don't we repurpose that dollars to help those folks coming off of unemployment to get work in infrastructure package? It sounds like a good win-win situation for those dollars. So I think we're looking at that as another way to fill the coffers to pay for infrastructure. But this is really important to the country. It's important to jobs. And, you know, nothing's off the table, I don't think, right now, but we're trying to reach a decision. But we got to figure out what we want and how much it costs before we really get granular on the pay-fors.
Just to give maybe a little more granular than you'd like on the pay-fors, I talked to Senator Pat Toomey, your colleague, recently, and he really emphasized the repurposing, if I can put it that way, of money already appropriated. He thinks there's hundreds of billions of dollars there. Is the White House at least open to that possibility of taking some of the money that's already been appropriated and putting it into infrastructure?
You know, I think you'd probably have to better ask the White House that question. As I said, nothing's been taken off the table. They listened. We talked about that yesterday. And so I don't think our expectations that they would swallow that, you know, entirely. But there may be areas we can work together. But that one's still to be determined.
So, Senator, you are in the room. You are the point person on the Republican side at this point. Let me get your sense, just a general sense. I won't hold you to this. If you were going to estimate what the likelihood is we will get some form of bipartisan agreement, where would you put the odds right now? Is it 25%, 50-50? Where do you think it is given where we are?
You know, I think I'm always a little bit of too much of an optimist at times, but I'm putting it over 50-50. I do think we have gaps here, but we do have the will to want to do this. And so this is where I think the real value is. So, you know, I'd put us, I don't know, a little bit over 50% being able to do it, but it's going to have to come together quickly. The president doesn't want to wait. I don't blame him there. And so I think the next 2 weeks will probably be the critical time spot. Well,
and that is the question about the timing, because as you said, there's a lot of impetus to move fairly quickly. There was talk about having an agreement in principle, not a legislation done, but an agreement in principle by Memorial Day. Do you think that's realistic at this point?
We're working towards that. I think it's important to note as well that our committees are working. We've already passed the water part of this infrastructure package out of our committee and actually out of the Senate floor. My committee, EPW, with Chairman Carper, we're working towards surface transportation, which is really the anchor part of this infrastructure, but also over on commerce. They're working on broadband and safety and other parts of the program through regular order in our committees, which I think is significant, because if we get the buy-in at the committee level, we can definitely get it you know, onto the floor. So we're hopeful we'll have much more clarity by Memorial Day.
So if you get clarity, and it's positive clarity, is it realistic to expect legislation by July 4?
That probably is going to go above my pay grade at some point, but you know, I've heard that as sort of a stop date, a July 4th date. Sometimes having good, hard, solid deadlines pushes us quicker and more aggressively. So, I mean, I don't think that's totally unrealistic, but right now it's hard for me to see July 4th as an end date.
Okay, Senator, really appreciate your time today. That's Senator Shelley Moore Capito. She's Republican of West Virginia.